Hey there, podcast lovers. Looking for a fresh take on the world? Tune into Nikki's World, where we dive into everything hitting the headlines and chat about just what's on our minds. No filters, just real talk. Whether you're sipping your morning coffee or unwinding after a long day, Nikki's World is your go-to for genuine commentary on the real world. Subscribe now if you want to hear the real deal on what's going on. Join the conversation on Nikki's World, where every episode feels like catching up with an old friend. Don't miss out.
What's up, y'all? Let's do this.
Oh, hi guys, welcome to Nikki's World. I'm Nikki, your host, and today, guys, we got to talk about why self-defense in a blue state will get you thrown in prison. And I got an example for you why defending yourself in a blue state, no matter how defensible it is, will get you thrown in prison. But before we go any further, guys, if you guys love Nikki's World so much, seriously, y'all, can y'all please consider donating a cup of coffee for me? Because for price of a cup of coffee at Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, and Cumberland Farms, guys, you guys help keep this podcast show alive. You guys help me curate more stories, more topics like this to talk about. I do accept Bitcoin donations. I am on Ko-fi, guys. If you guys want to support, sponsor, donate, and tip to Nikki's World. If you guys love Nikki's World so much, seriously, y'all, please hit that like, subscribe, please give me a review. Good, bad, and the ugly. Also, guys, I do have a bunch of affiliate links. First off is Minds.com. Minds.com is a Connecticut-based social media platform. They are an awesome alternative to Facebook, guys. So if you guys value your right to freedom of speech like I do, and you guys want to be able to say stuff that on other social media platforms that would get you blocked, suspended, and deplatformed and kicked out, well then, head on over to my friends at Minds.com. So, ladies and gentlemen, I do have the most awesome, and I mean the most awesome affiliate link out there. If you guys value your right to the Second Amendment and your right to self-defense, well then, ladies and gentlemen, head on over to my friends at Byrna.com. Byrna makes their top-of-the-line Byrna SD, Byrna LE, PCR, Mission 4, and their newest, ladies and gentlemen, their compact launcher. So if you guys value your right to the Second Amendment, your right to self-defense, but you guys want to do it in a less lethal manner, ladies and gentlemen, well then, head on over to my friends at Byrna.com. Also, ladies and gentlemen, I do have the most awesome, and I mean the most awesome affiliate link with North Shore Medical Supply. North Shore Medical Supply, they make their top of the line North Shore Megamax diaper, North Shore Supreme pull up, and their Eterna boosters, guys. So if you know somebody out there like I do who needs to be put in adult diapers and who needs to wear adult diapers, well then, send them on over to North Shore Medical Supply and they will make sure that they are diapered up and padded up as always. And before we get this show on the road, literally, guys, if you guys love this episode and any of my other episodes on Nikki's World, seriously, y'all, can y'all please consider sharing this across all the social media platforms that are out there today? Hey, wow, that was a mouthful. That was a mouthful. And yes, guys, I am diapered up as always. I'm in my North Shore Mega Max diapers with my Eterna boosters. And I have my onesies from Little's Laboratories, who used to be online, but they're no longer online there. So I'm diapered up, padded up. Let's get ready with the show, shall we? And before we do get ready, I just want to give you all an update, guys, on my foot surgery. I did see the doctor today. The doctor removed the stitches. So it looks like after the Thanksgiving holiday, I'll be going back to work. So I'll be going back to work in time for the holidays and being able to be back with the gang, be back with the crew and all that. So I'll be back at work ready to rock and roll as always. So that is pretty neat and pretty cool to say the least. Pretty much, yeah. So I'll be back in action in time for Christmas holidays. Make all that big bang, boom, shabam, bucks. You know what I mean, and all that stuff. So I'll be ready and back in action, and then that goes the same for my modeling photo shoots. I'll be back in action for that as well too. So anyway, let's get on with the show, shall we? So these two articles come from the Western Journal and the New York Post. And I gotta read you this first one from Western Journal. New State Paradise. Senior citizen 67 will now spend years in prison after defending himself from aggressive thief. Read you the first. Read you the first three paragraphs from this. If you live in a blue state, move out. If you live in a red state, be thankful you don't live in the blue one. Instead of praising a senior citizen for defending himself against a crazed attacker, news concerning a 67-year-old Charlie, I'm gonna butcher his last name, so I do apologize. Foreigner to prison for 4 years. On Thursday, Foreigner was sentenced on one count of criminal weapons possession when he fatally shot Cody Gomez in a mugger who charged at him. So in New York City, okay, which has the strictest gun laws in all the blue states, a senior citizen uses a gun to defend himself against the mugger who charged at him, is now going to spend prison in 4 years? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to just say this blunt and clear. If you live in a blue state like I do, out as fast as you can. Get the fuck out as fast as you can. Flee to red states like Florida, Georgia, you know what I mean? South Carolina or Texas or Alabama. Flee to those red states immediately. Because blue states like New York City, they protect criminals than citizens. So this case that happened in New York City, a criminal thug was charging at a senior citizen. Senior citizen pulls out a gun, shoots the guy, ultimately kills him. So now a New York City court sends him to prison for 4 years. This is why, ladies and gentlemen, this is the same New York City that tried to throw Daniel Penny in prison for defending the public from a thug. And now they're doing this to this guy? I tell you this. This is why, ladies and gentlemen, the Democrats, the liberals, and the progressives, and the communists, they don't want people defending themselves. They want people to be helpless victims because they would rather defend a thug, a criminal, an illegal immigrant over a citizen. And this is why, ladies and gentlemen, I've always harped this. In the blue state, if you defended yourself with a gun, you get thrown in prison. Yeah. But if you do it in the red state, you're likely to walk out. Yeah. But this is why I've advocated in blue states, if you want to defend yourself, you get yourself a Byrna. A Byrna is a less lethal self-defense weapon where it shoots kinetic, pepper, and tear gas. Yeah. In a blue state, they would you could defend yourself with that. If you defend yourself with a 9mm, a Glock, or an AR-15 in a blue state, you're more likely going to be doing prison for the next 10 years. Yeah, you're likely. In the red state, they'd be like this. Bravo. Bravo. And this is why I tell people, blue states hate guns so much that they're willing to strip citizens' rights of self-defense, even if you're carrying a Byrna. For me, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you this. I carry a Byrna LE, okay? I carry the Byrna Max rounds, which has pepper and tear gas. I carry that along with the kinetic because I'm going to tell you this. After seeing this story in New York City, you know blue states are itching to throw gun owners, gun rights, and people who value real life in defense of themselves. They're willing to do that. But to throw someone just for defending themselves? What the fuck is wrong with New York City? What the fuck is wrong with all these fucking retarded leftists, liberals, socialists, communists, and progressives? What the fuck is wrong with these people? Yeah, what the fuck? Because to defend yourself in a blue state where they value illegal immigrants, criminals, and thugs over a citizen, that just goes to show who has more rights in blue states. Yeah, that just goes to show in blue states, illegal immigrants, criminals, thugs have more rights than the U.S. citizens in blue states. Like U.S. citizens in blue states are treated like second-class citizens because the left prioritizes those people over actual people. Pretty much. Pretty much. And in this article right here, this article, if I bring this up on the post right here, I'll read it for you. Okay? Senior citizen who saved himself from would-be mugger is headed to prison because of New York City's draconian law. Okay? Read you the headline. A Cleveland senior citizen who shot dead a man who tried to rob him will spend 4 years in prison after admitting to toting an unlicensed revolver as his lawyer ripped the city's draconian gun laws. Charles Foreigner, 67, pleaded guilty to 1 count of criminal weapons possession Thursday in a deal to end his case more than 2 years after he fatally shot a would-be thief, Cody Gonzalez, who charged at him near his Kew Gardens home. The Queens District Attorney chose not to prosecute Forner, a retired doorman, for Gonzalez killing after he told the cops that he defended himself from a mugger who lunged at him late at night holding what looked like a knife or turned out to be a pen. The prosecutor slapped Forner with a slew of weapons wrapped for unlicensed handgun and for an arsenal of illicit handgun, revolvers, rifles inside his home in a quiet neighborhood. You see the problem here, guys, ladies and gentlemen? States want to turn this area into like the UK, where criminals have weapons and citizens can't defend themselves. And if they defend themselves, they get thrown in prison. Yeah. Amazing, isn't it? Amazing how blue states want to do this. Amazing, isn't it, folks? That blue states want to throw you in prison just for defending yourself. And the only option you have in a blue state is to carry a Byrna. And even then, a prosecutor will charge your ass for defending yourself. This is how fucked up. This is how corrupt our legal system is. This is how corrupt our government is in this country. When you have tyrannical leftists who will side with criminals and thugs over citizens, and who will quit to throw you in jail just to defend yourself. It just goes to show, ladies and gentlemen, the left does not care about gun rights. The left does not care about your rights. That's why you got groups like Sandy Hook Promise or the Giffords leftist group, who are all about trying to rip away your right to own a gun, your right to defend yourself. Because you know why? Those anti-gun groups are all about protecting the criminals, are all about protecting the thugs, are all about protecting illegal immigrants who beat, rob, rape, mug, home invade your property, and then they go, that's nothing, that's nothing, that's nothing. But when it happens to them, they'll be crying a different tune. They'll be crying a different tune here. Because I'm gonna tell you this. That guy who's gonna be spending 4 years in prison for defending himself. Where's Attorney General Pam Bondi on this? This should be a judicial review immediately. And at the same time, doesn't this violate the decision? Because New York State is saying that you can't defend yourself, and that goes against the Bruin decision. That's a grounds for appeal. That's a grounds for the quickest appeal in human history. That's a grounds for appeals at the federal level. And if that case gets overturned and the guy's conviction gets wiped out, that should send a message to New York State and New York City that you can't violate a person's right to self-defense. You can't violate their right to the Second Amendment. You can't, no matter how badly you want to do it. No, you can't. That's why we have the Constitution. And if you don't like that, there's the door. You can go leave America and go to a country that agrees with your politics. Pretty much that simple, guys. Pretty much that simple. But this is why, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm going to say this as someone who lives in a blue state, carry a Byrna as much as you can. Because we all know this case in New York, in Queens, New York, is an example of why blue state district attorneys would love to throw your fucking carcass in prison for defending yourself, for doing what is constitutionally allowed in this country. They would love to do that because many of the blue state district attorneys are all on the payroll of George Soros. Pretty much they are. And this is why I've often said this online, that carrying a burner is a must in blue states. In red states, it's an option. But in blue states like New York City, okay, like Connecticut, like Massachusetts, Rhode Island, you know what I mean? Like New York, Illinois, California, Oregon, and Washington State, like that, in Minnesota, carrying a burner is your first line of defense if you live in a blue state. In a red state, it's optional. It could be like what, an intermediate before resorting to lethal defense. But in a blue state, you have no choice of lethal defense. You have no choice of using lethal force. Because if you use lethal force in a blue state, they don't care what the law is. They'll find any excuse to throw your fucking carcass in prison and then laugh about it as you're rotting away in a state prison cell in the middle of godforsaken nowhere. Yeah. Because you know why? These these blue state district attorneys are all protected by George Soros and the criminal thugs that the leftists pander to. That's why I tell people, you want to defend yourself with a burner as much as you can. Yeah, defend yourself with one. Because I'm going to tell you why. After what happened to that guy in Queens, New York, burners should be more and more and more popular. It really should. Because I'm going to tell you this. For example. At least with a burner, you can defend yourself. At least with a burner, it gives you an option to at least what? Put the guy down with pepper and tear gas that he's choking, and then you running the other way. Yeah. At least in a blue state, yeah, that gives you the option. Because if you use a Glock, a 9mm, or 45, or a revolver, or an AR-15 in a blue state, yeah, how fast are you going to get thrown in prison? How fast are you going to get thrown in jail? Because I'm going to tell you this, that is the quickest way to land in jail. That is the quickest way to get yourself thrown in prison. And believe me, ladies and gentlemen, I wouldn't want to do time in a blue state prison. I wouldn't want to do time in a state prison for something that is constitutionally allowed in this country. Yeah. So that's why I tell people, and I tell people on social media, this is the reason why in a blue state, burners are becoming more and more as an option to defend yourself. If you're stuck in a blue state and you want to defend yourself, seriously, get yourself a burner. Get yourself a burner, because you know why? A burner is going to be at least something to stand on in court. When you have this tyrannical blue state district attorney who's going to say, "Well, why did you use this burner for?" Well, it looks like a gun. But then law enforcement is going to sit there and say, it fires pepper and tear gas, the same they use in county jails and corrections. Yeah. So but then that gives that blue state attorney no room to maneuver, where they're going to have to force to go like this. Well, we're going to drop the case. Yeah, but this is why I tell people burners are specific to where you live. If you live in a blue state, a burner is a must-have. If you live in a red state, then it becomes an option. Then it becomes it's an option, but not really needed in a red state because, yeah, we have strong gun laws, we have strong castle laws, we have strong self-defense laws. But in blue states where they have weak castle laws, weak self-defense laws, having a burner is your only option to defend yourself. Sort of having Kyle Rittenhouse's lawyer on speed dial and having whatchamacallit, okay, having his attorney, on call. Pretty much. Pretty much. But the fact of the matter is, guys, what happened in Queens, New York is a miscarriage of justice. It pretty much is. It's a miscarriage because a senior citizen, how are they going to defend themselves in a blue state? Does this district attorney want him to be beaten up, mugged, and basically stabbed so much that he's on a breathing tube at a hospital? While your anti-gun buddies are celebrating that, look, another victim. Yeah, that's what that blue state district attorney and their anti-gun crusaders want. They want more victims for their damn cause. They want more victims so that they know that they can push their anti-gun shit. Yeah, they know that they want more victims because they want women to be defenseless. They want women to be raped, mugged, and murdered. Pretty much. But this is why, guys, I tell people, especially women, if you're uncomfortable carrying a gun, carry a burner. A burner is going to be at least it gives you a leg to stand on. And I know a lot of pro-Second Amendment, gun self-defense groups are going to say like this. This is why I don't live in blue states. This is why I live in red states where I carry a gun. Okay? That's good for them. Fine, all and dandy. But for the people who live in blue states, who are stuck, who are trapped, what options do you give to those people? And I asked that to all the pro-gun groups. I asked them that, like, what options do you give to these people when it comes to defending themselves? Okay? When it comes to defending themselves, what options? I know many of them will say move, but they're stuck. How do you get them to defend themselves? And you got to give them that mindset, and you got to tell them, look, some people are stuck in blue states. Okay, maybe due to family, maybe due to careers, maybe due to some other reason. But what do you give them as an option to defend themselves? And for me personally, I tell them, get yourself a Byrna SD, LE, you know what I mean? Their TCR, their Mission 4, their compact launcher, whatever, man, because at least in a blue state, they get shot by a burner, they know they ain't gonna die. They're probably gonna have the psychological impact of being shot at, but then they're gonna be choking on pepper and tear gas for at least 45 minutes until the cops show up, and then they're gonna have to haul them into the paddy wagon and send them off to county jail. Yeah, that's what, and then they're gonna have that psychological impact of like, oh, I got shot, but the only thing they're gonna have is a bruise that looks so big that even the cops are going like this. That's why you get what you deserve. Yeah, pretty much. But to me, guys, if you live in a blue state and you want to defend yourself, move to a red state immediately. If you can move immediately to a red state, do it. But if you cannot move to a red state for whatever reason and you are stuck and trapped in a blue state, defend yourself with a burner. Get yourself a burner. My full link's in the description below, guys. If you want to buy a burner straight from the company's website, full link in the description below. It really is. Really is. Anyway, I want to talk about this saga that's been going on since yesterday. Okay. Remember how we talked about, like on my previous episode, about how the Democrats are trying to force the military and the intelligence community to disobey a direct order from President Trump, setting themselves up for treason and sedition. Well, I talked about this on social media as well, and I said like this: if the FBI is not going to arrest and prosecute these Democrats for treason and sedition, why the fuck do we have a country? Why bother having a country, let alone the rule of law, if it's not going to be enforced? If Cash Patel, Dan Bongino, and Pam Bondi are not going to get their ass off their desk to arrest these Democrats blatantly on video admitting that they are advocating to overthrow a legitimate government and advocating for the military and intelligence community to disobey a direct order from President Trump, why fucking bother having a country? Why fucking bother having a rule of law when it's not going to be enforced? When one side gets to get away with saying shit, and I've said this also on social media. If a Republican, conservative, libertarian, and independent said this when a Democrat is sitting in the White House, how fast do you think federal law enforcement would be at their doorstep and would be thrown in prison? How fast, ladies and gentlemen? Because I'm going to tell you this, they would be thrown in federal prison by the time they wake up the next day. If this happened when a Democrat is running the White House, but since a Republican is running the White House and Democrats are saying this, I have to question, when is Pam Bondi, when is Dan Bongino, when is Cash Patel going to get their ass off their desk and really start prosecuting these people and start enforcing the law? Because to me, it seems like Democrats seem to think that they can get away with this shit because they think that, oh, I can say that the military and intel community should disobey an order from Trump and not face any repercussions, not facing any consequences. What the fuck? Why the fuck do we have a country if we're not enforcing the law? If we're not enforcing standards? If we're not enforcing equal justice under the law in this country? What the fuck do we have a country if we're not going to do these things? If we're not going to tell these Democrats, you can't say that. You saying that, we're coming to your house and arresting you right then and there. Okay? Why have the rule of law? Why have this and this and this? Why? And I apologize if you're hearing background noise in advance. I do apologize. Okay? I do apologize if you hear background noise, okay? I do apologize. But I'm saying like this. Why bother having a country? Why bother having this and this and this? Why bother? Because you know why? Democrats think that they can say shit and get away with shit. But then when they're in power, if a Republican, conservative, libertarian, and independent or a MAGA member said that shit, oh yeah, they'd be treated like J6ers and they'd be thrown in fucking prison and the FBI would be sent out to hunt their ass down. But since Democrats want to say this shit and want to act like, oh, the rule of law doesn't apply to me, it applies to you people. Yeah, that's where we have a problem in this country. That's the problem we have. Is that Democrats think the rule of law don't apply to them just because they're what? A senator or House of Representative. Fuck you. And I'm saying that to those Democrats who call for the military and intel community to disobey President Trump's order. I'm gonna say it like this: fuck you, and fuck you on the horse that you fucking rode on. The fact that you think that the rules don't apply to you, that you get to say that the military and intel community should disobey an order from Trump, yeah, you should be thrown in prison immediately. Cash Patel, Dan Bongino, Pam Bondi, what the fuck are you guys? Why aren't you guys going after these Democrats? The videos are all over social media and online. Makes me wonder. Why have a country? Why have a rule of law when the laws aren't going to be enforced? When there ain't going to be no equal justice under the law? Why? Why bother having it when it ain't going to be enforced? Why bother having the United States of America when the rule of law ain't going to be enforced equally? Okay, because it seems like Democrats are flouting the law, saying, "Oh no, oh no, oh no, we Trump calling for our death and this and this and this." Of course he is, because you know why? Treason and sedition is a federal offense. It's a crime, and you can be either prosecuted, thrown in prison, or given the death sentence. You can't. And if you don't believe it, look up the law. Go ask ChatGPT. Go ask AI. Go ask Grok. Okay? Go ask any of your ChatGPT programs and ask them about treason and sedition. I'll fucking bet you it'll spit out the cold hard truth that you don't like to hear. You don't want to admit. But I will say this, ladies and gentlemen, if Cash Patel, Dan Bongino, and Pam Bondi are not going after these Democrats, are not prosecuting them, are not perp walking them into federal detention, and especially for those Democrats who are military veterans, are not given a court martial, then why the fuck do we have a country here in America? Why the fuck do we have the rule of law if we're not enforcing those laws? That's a question I want answered, okay? As I'm here in my diaper and onesie, why bother? Bother with this shit? Yeah, why bother? Really? Really? Because I'm sitting here podcasting to y'all in my diaper and onesie and questioning, why bother have a country? Why bother have a rule of law if one side gets to say shit that is essentially a crime and not get prosecuted, not get arrested for it? Why bother? Yeah, why bother? Because why bother having a country when we're not going to prosecute these people for it? When we're not going to throw these people in prison for it? Because essentially, treason and sedition calls for what, minimum of 5 years to 20-year prison sentence, and up to a certain amount of fines and a ban from public office, and some of them even call for the death penalty. Why aren't we enforcing that? Is it we are selectively enforcing it? I just want to know. I just want to know, as I'm asking everyone on social media, why do we have a country? Why do we have a rule of law when the Democrats are getting away with treasonous and seditionist talk, and telling the military and the intel community to disobey an order from Trump, and talking about overthrowing Trump? Why bother have a country when we're not enforcing the fucking rule of law? Why? I ask that because people sit there and go like this. Oh, Democrats aren't saying this and this and this. Dude, the federal law says, talking about any talk of treason and sedition, yeah, you can be thrown in prison for 20 years. You can be executed for crimes against the United States government. And what the Democrats are doing is simply throwing their citizenship, their allegiance to this country out the window, and calling for the intel community and the military to disobey an order from the President of the United States, and telling them that you don't have to listen to the president. It's pretty much treason, no matter how you slice it, no matter how you call it. It is treason, no matter how you say it, how you slice it, how you call it. Because I will tell you this, ladies and gentlemen, I will tell you this. The Democrats who are trying to gaslight you, saying that, oh no, we didn't talk about that, we didn't talk about that, and then they're trying to like Darvo the living fucking daylights out of you. Don't listen to them. Just get up in their face and tell them what they said is treason, and then cite the federal law. Cite the federal law in front of their face. Because I'm gonna tell you this: once you cite the federal law, they run and hide. They call you this and this and this, and just tell them, "I guess I was right because that is the law, and I cited it." Mm-hmm. So that's why I often ask like Rock, hey, is what the Democrats saying like considered treason and sedition under federal law in the United States of America? And boy, it spits back the facts like like that. That's why, ladies and gentlemen, the left hates Elon Musk. The left hates like X and Grok and Grokpedia. They hate that because you know why? It fact checks them. It basically cites facts that they hate so much that they can't weasel their fucking ass out of it. They really do. So that's why they're scared shit. That's why they run to their like safe space, or as I call it, blue cry, and complain that people are spitting facts and all this shit. This is why, ladies and gentlemen, what these Democrats are doing, they're pushing us to a civil war in this country. They're pushing us to like Shay's rebellion in this country. And if we get to Shay's rebellion and the whiskey rebellion, guys, I'm gonna tell you what, it might get ugly. And if it gets ugly to that level, I don't know if we'll ever have a country after that. We might be looking at balkanization for all I care, because of the fact that you got leftists who wanna, whatchamacallit, okay? who wanna basically overthrow a legitimate government. That's because the Democrats have no power. They don't. They have a split Senate, and they have no power in the House of Representatives. So what the Democrats are doing, guys, they're basically trying to overthrow a legitimate government. They know they're going to lose in the upcoming midterm elections, because the midterm elections is going to be a bloodbath for them, because they already know that's going to cost them dearly, because what they done during the government shutdown, they know people are going to be pissed off at them like no fucking tomorrow. And then at the same time, there are a bunch of Democrat and Republican lawmakers who are not going to run for re-election. So it's going to be an open season in their district. So the Democrats' only leverage is to either try to impeach Trump, which we all know that ain't going anywhere, because they don't have the votes, and with a split Senate, and with JD Vance being the tie vote, there's no way. There's no way. So the only way they have left is either holding the country hostage, or what they're doing with their treasonous, seditious talk. Yeah, that's the only leverage they have left. That's the only leverage. And we all know JD Vance is going to probably run for president in 2028. They're scared of that prospect too. They already know if JD Vance wins, he gets 8 years in office. And they're scared of that prospect. And then after that is what? Don Jr. or Barron Trump? They're scared of that as well. They really are. That's why the Democrats have no power anymore. They have no leverage. Any power and leverage they have is thrown out the window. Any talk of treason and sedition, gone. It's out the window for them. It really is. So that's why them telling the military and intel community to disobey a direct order from Trump, that's their only card left. That's their only card left. And at this point, they have nothing left. They're literally done. They're literally finished. They're literally wiped out in some cases. Which is why I tell people they have nothing left. And the only thing they're probably going to do is probably lawyer up. Because if the Department of Justice wakes up from their sleep and wakes up from their cat nap, okay, and gets his damn fucking act together, they go after these people. They'd arrest them. They prosecute them. They throw them in prison. Yeah, they would. But if they can get their damn fucking act together and get going, yeah, we could salvage this country. We could salvage this shit. Okay? But if they're gonna act like this and sleepwalk while the other side gets to talk about treason, sedition, talking about the military and the intel community should disobey an order from Trump, why the fuck do we have a country? Why the fuck do we have the rule of law for? That's a question I have for y'all. That's a question I have. And if y'all got reasons behind that, guys, drop it to me in the comments below. Drop it for me in the comments below, because I wonder, as I'm here in my diaper and onesie, why do we let one side get to talk about shit that would get you thrown in a prison if the other side said it, but the other side gets to get away with it, but the other side gets like treated like a criminal. That's all I want to know. That's all I want to know from y'all. That's really it. Wow. Wow. That was a good long show, guys. That was a good long show. That was, guys. Yeah, that was. But anyway, guys, I really want to thank you guys for listening to Nikki's World. I'm Nikki, your host. I hope y'all have a safe weekend. I will see y'all next week before we take off for Thanksgiving break. I will see y'all soon. Bye for now.
You just listened to an episode of Nikki's World. Thanks for listening. We'll see y'all soon. Bye for now.